Welcome to MTNX Global On Demand. Please enjoy the session at your own pace.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today in this session of MTNX 2023, where we are going to discuss about end-to-end supply chain in complex manufacturing companies. And I have with me a very interesting panel of different professionals from different industries in the process and in the discrete manufacturing, which are all going through different challenges. And on top, we have Arndt as well from the academic world, which can also give us a very interesting perspective from an outside-in perspective. On my side, Tanguy Caillé, EVP at O9 and responsible for growth markets and global alliances. I will be your host today and moderator. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me just start with Joanne, if you would like to introduce yourself to the audience.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm Joanne Lum, the VP of Supply Chain Planning and Intuitive Surgical. I'm responsible for the demand supply planning groups and the production planning groups. We build surgical robots and the accessories and instruments that are used on them for surgeries. So we're headquartered in Sunnyvale, California, and we've been using O9 for the last 6 years, and we're off to a very fun journey, or challenging journey, I should say.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Scott.
So Scott Civzellis. So I'm the IT director here at DS Smith Packaging, and I'm responsible for the delivery of IT services and capabilities that enable our business and, importantly, our customers succeed. Focused on driving growth in our business, which is a priority for me, and developing our leading position on sustainability, innovation, and doing that through digital and data capabilities. So many people won't know a great deal about DS Smith because we're one of those great kept secrets, but we are a leading supplier of packaging products globally. And it's very likely that you will have seen our products and our packaging products on the shelves of your local supermarkets. And maybe even later today, many of you will be receiving a knock at the door with an e-commerce parcel that may be manufactured by DS Smith. We're present in 34 countries across Europe and the US. We have around 250 global manufacturing facilities and 13 paper mills that add also to the recycling networks that we have across Europe and the US. So we're a highly complicated business, and we too are just on our journey with O9 in terms of digitalizing our supply chain. So really pleased to be here today.
Thank you so much, Scott. And Arndt, if you could please present yourself.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Arndt Huchtermeier. I'm faculty member here at WHU in Koblenz in Germany. We have run the Industrial Excellence Award competition in Europe for the last 25 years, and it's a privilege for me to see the best run supply chains in Europe. And today, the focus is on digitization, so deploying a digital strategy in the enterprise, bottom up, top down. And I'm happy to be here to learn more about end-to-end visibility.
Thank you so much, Arndt, and let's get immediately starting. And I think as an introduction, I wanted to ask Joanne about really how and why do digitalization of supply chain for companies is becoming a key priority. I mean, we have been discussing this for a long time now with, let's say, COVID has been an accelerator, and actually even the macroeconomics environment right now is still continuing to prove the case that companies need to change. They absolutely need to digitalize their business models, and supply chain is probably one of the premier process that requires such a change. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, and also what your company is actually doing currently to improve itself and compete in this new digitalized world.
Yeah, thank you. So, our journey towards digitalization actually started 6 years ago when we implemented O9. I think at that time we were heavily using Excel spreadsheets, our ERP systems. We had no data analytics. We did not link our demand and supply plans together. We weren't able to see capacity, utilization, nor were we able to link our labor to all of this data. I think when you work in a complex manufacturing world where we have 20 manufacturing sites, 150 manufacturing lines to manage, we want to combine all our data to be able to easily identify and understand our data by exceptions reporting. We also use a lot of visualizations, to understand, is our data correct? We've been on our journey with O9 for the last 6 years. We've learned a lot. I'd say From the beginning, we were very manual. So I think the understanding of using a digital tool or an analytic tool is helping us understand where we need to go with all of our data. So I say in the last year, we really rolled out a 3-year plan to heavily invest in our operations in order to digitalize our supply chain. Before I talk about some of our initiatives, I want to give you a description of what digitalization means to our leadership team. What we really want is our systems to be aware and to detect physical events. So we want to be able to use barcodes, smart products, GPS, Wi-Fi, 5G. Our data must also be present whenever we need it. For example, we want to be able to use B2B, EDW, APIs, right? So algorithms should also drive our data and drive decisions, right? We want to rely on deterministic calculations and logic. So we want to use statistical forecasting, capacity constraint leveling, scheduling, and ATP logic. We also want to make sure that our actions are triggered by automatic decisions. So PO automation, auto pick list, auto work order generations. So really what this means to our companies, we want to make sure we have no typos, no typing. We don't pull data down from a system to do calculations. We don't want to do Excel, and no people-made formulas. So this journey is not going to happen overnight, right? But we have a clear vision of where we want to go. And some of the initiatives that we're actually working on now that actually have projects in our plan area, we continue to improve our speed and agility in 09. We want to move to our material constrained build plans. We already drive our demand to a capacity constrained build plan. We also want to move towards automatic smooth build plans. And we are going to further refine our line capacity and labor calculations. So in our make area, we've implemented and continue to automate our manufacturing lines to reduce floor space, make our lines more efficient, and optimize our quality. So we are also in process of implementing SRS, which is an automatic storage and retrieval system, so we can save space. We want to be able to deliver components and point of usage packaging with RFID labels, and we want to use ASN to automate receiving and create auto triggers for putaways. We also have a project to implement RFID for component traceability. We also want to track our parts going through our warehouse and to our distribution sites. In our deliver area, we're implementing EWM, which is our electronic warehouse management system to manage our inventory and processes. And we're also implementing a transportation management system to track our routings, our freight payments, and our deliveries to our customers. So really, we're working to tie all these systems and processes within our ERP system. So those are kind of our main initiatives that we already started. We have a long roadmap to get there. And I think, for most businesses that have complex, multi-international factories, there's a lot of data to absorb, and we no longer use spreadsheets, right? We need to use analytics, visualizations, and tools to be able to manage by exception. So that's what we're doing at Intuitive.
Thanks so much, Joanne. Thanks so much. So I was thinking actually, Scott, to ask you, because also from your perspective and on your company and your business, I mean, we have been talking about those topics for quite some years already. And one we could say 6 years is a long journey already, as Joanne mentioned. Maybe there is, I would say it's about 10 years we speak really about digitalization and the application it has on supply chain. So why do you think it takes so long time for companies to get themselves on the journey, and that actually those transformations finally takes quite some time to happen?
Thanks, Tanguy. So, I mean, if I just think about my time here at DS Smith, I mean, we've got a fantastic track record of working closely with our customers. And we've grown our business exponentially over recent years. And we've put huge focus into that with a real focus on our customer and servicing our customer. I would consider DS Smith to be one of the most customer-centric organizations that I've ever worked for, actually. But whilst thought leadership, I mean, in my personal opinion, thought leadership has remained actually relatively constant over the last 10 years with regards to supply chain planning. However, I've seen a big leap actually in tech capability over the last 10 years. And I feel that many organizations actually, and many of the organizations that I've historically worked for in the past, have maybe not exploited the opportunity of digital and data in the supply chain, because the business ecosystem hasn't quite reached the level of maturity and control across its people, its process, and its data, and also its organizational makeup, actually, in order to exploit that value. So across industry, it's also not hard to find examples of where companies have deployed tech and not deployed transformation. And I think here at DS Smith, we're certainly focused on how we can use transformation and digitalizing the supply chain to add value to the customer. And if I try to think in some of those more mature industries that those more traditional industries, as I might describe them, I think you will find examples out there where companies have deployed tech and have not deployed people, process, technology, organizational capabilities to really transform the need of the business. So to put it in a nutshell, that would be why I think companies maybe haven't taken the leap at the pace technology has developed. But companies like DS Smith are getting that right now, and we're certainly investing the time and effort into the ecosystem, as I would describe it, to get digital supply chain transformation right. And fundamentally, that has the opportunity to increase service level, increase our efficiency in terms of working capital, and really put value to the bottom line of our customers and our business.
Great. Thanks a lot, Scott. And actually, Arndt, I wanted to come from a little more academic perspective, because I guess from a thought leadership, you have been, and your colleagues have been kind of on the topic for a while, probably seeing it coming from how the data and technology would be driving currently the current transformation of the operating models of many companies. So what's your perspective here, and actually how do you see the future going with this trend?
Right. I think digitization is very important for all companies in the world. I think there's no discussion around this. And because people have used ERP systems and MES systems, and now there's integration into digital twins. So companies are trying to capture all data which is along the value chain. But there's a big gap of implementing these digital twins. So I was wondering why that is the case, right? So if you look at lighthouse factories, and we have some here in Germany, there's McKinsey has this initiative, of course, of lighthouse factories. And there's some notable approaches here. And the most notable approach of deploying your digital strategy in the organization is, for example, what Henkel has done, one of our last year's winners, giving everyone an iPad. Every employee has an iPad. And then they're building dashboards based on the available data. So if I hear Joanne, there are so many systems that are providing data, which also may be connected. That's a challenge by itself, and across locations, across regions, across business units. That's really hard to do. But what this company has achieved by giving iPads to all the employees in all sites, they're building dashboards on the fly to solve business problems, and the acceptance rate is very high of these digital processes. So one way is to, of course, to build more information, to integrate more information, and then also make it usable. And we call this a bottom-up, top-down strategy formation process, because you need management to interact with people that have ideas when they see all this data. And that's done daily in these organizations. So it's a daily top-down process where you have to align, because there's so many things that come up. And I would ask my colleagues here from industry how they see this, because if there's all this data available, the digital twin is available, people start to act. And how do you align that back to the strategy? So that's kind of the big challenge to me in leadership. Just to wrap this up, it is a challenge because we had the lean supply chains in the last years. Only through disruption, we are now investing in these technologies more than we did. But many companies, I was talking today to some, are going back to the lean model, and because the lean model has worked in the past. And so there is the belief that customers desire cheaper products, and so the investments in these technologies are, not moving as fast as they could.
Which actually is a very interesting point, because I think we have been for the past I mean, one could contest. You spoke about ERP system, and I think there is also a first generation of planning systems which emerged in the 90s, and actually were kind of like or there for the first 20 years. I think we could have said that we have implemented technology for the past 30 years to digitalize already the companies and the operating models. But the question is, did we leverage? So today, the capabilities of technology are not anymore the same as what they were before, right? So big data, cloud computing, all those capabilities make it possible now to digest so much more data and almost in real time. So I think the decision making in companies is changing, and especially for complex manufacturing system companies which are facing complex supply chains, it is even more required. So I don't know, Joanne, Scott, how you see this, but what is kind of like what is on top of technology, which ingredient do you need to make an impact into your business and deliver value so that you're not just like using data, but actually making a change? So I don't know your perspective, Joanne or Scott.
Yeah, so I think we have to link our data together, right? So for example, in our demand supply planning processes, we run our demand or supply, right? We have to be able to look and be able to see the whole picture. So in an analytic way, I run an SNOP process where I can actually see the demand in a chart. I can actually see the historical demand, the forward-looking demand. I can see the buffer strategies that we're linking and the projected inventory, right? So based on running data through O9, I'm able to look at the number of headcount I need, the utilization on the lines, right? To predict what headcount is going to be required in future quarters, right? So bringing all that information is complex. And I don't think any one Excel spreadsheet can actually answer that question for you. And there's a lot of escapes in that. We actually tried to build a capacity constraint build plan and Excel, and it was very hard to manage, right? So within O9, we're able to run the data, then pull it out into Tableau and visualize. This actually helps us understand if we have any math errors also, because visually we can see the relationships of the graphs and the lines. So that's how we're moving forward with our digital data. But I will agree, trying to combine all of these systems together is hard, right? And we all have different systems that we've grown up with. So trying to align all that data, it really starts with having a data hierarchy, right? And making sure that data hierarchy runs through all of your systems so you're able to pull that data out in a consumable way at the end.
Yep, exactly. Scott, do you have something to add on this?
Very similar points really to Joanne. So, I mean, I'd break this down into two lumps. So what is it that can make us successful above the system? So data for me, front and foremost, and I'm a long way into a career now. And I'm still waiting to work for that company that's perfectly systemically aligned with one single ERP. It just isn't there, right? So the modern realities of the world that we operate within, large companies have grown through acquisition, are dealing with a legacy of data that isn't quite aligned to a common language. So data and alignment of data in modern business is a real challenge. Technology, however, is bringing capability into that space. So, I mean, some of the things that we are developing and embracing here at DS Smith with our digital and data capabilities is using modern cloud and engineering capabilities to align our data sets above the ERP level and give ourselves that opportunity to standardize data. So technology can help. However, I mean, going back to some of the points that Arnd raised as well, so it's super important actually in a modern organization that you've got the decision-making structures that can take value from that data. So having modern SNOP or IB, integrated business planning processes with real adoption by leadership is actually where you then make the data pay, because then you can make real decisions that impact your customer and real decisions that make your supply chain more effective.
Absolutely. So thanks for that. And actually, speaking about decisions, one of the first decisions that many companies have to do is to guess or to understand what is going to be the demand, right? And in complex manufacturing companies, which are usually B2B type of businesses, they are, let's say, a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, whatever space they are, but they are behind a few steps, the real demand, if we would call it like this. So I know, Joanne, at Intuitive Surgicals, you have use digitalization as a way to actually recover data points, which allows you to actually get a better forecasting. So maybe great for you to share with us how it looks like and how you leverage this.
So we're in a medical device industry. So we sell capital systems and we sell medical procedures to our customers. So one of our challenges in order to have better demand visibility is to be able to translate our medical procedures into the actual SKUs that we're selling to our customers. This means we have to understand our medical procedures. They need to be broken down by country, by surgical type. We need to understand the choreography of procedures, which is which instruments are used in which procedures. We need to understand connect rates, usage rates, and throwaway factors, because many of our instruments have multiple lives or multiple firings. Another challenge for us for demand visibility is really understanding country-specific regulatory paths. ECO part number changes require specific regulatory approvals. And these approvals can take a couple weeks and up to maybe 2 years at one time. So we need to be able to plan these future changes for better demand visibility. So how do we tackle getting better demand visibility? I talked about earlier, we really want our systems to drive our data. So we want to do most of this in our advanced planning tools. So inside of O9, we're able to drive 2 types of forecasts. One from our shipment best fit. So we take historical shipments, we apply algorithms, and that calculates a forward-looking demand. We also can take our procedure data, which we actually know is pretty correct since most of our systems talk home. But we need to break that down to the SKU level. So we actually add connect rates, usage rates, and throwaway factors to get us to the SKU forecast. So what we do is we bring those 2 together in O9. So we're able to see the way the 2 forecasts are being developed. Our product marketing teams can actually override that. So what we do in the demand meetings, we bring up a Tableau dashboard. We bring up the 2 lines, we take a look at that, and we try and understand why they're different, right? We do know that certain procedures will always be a one-to-one, so we can understand what that shipment looks like compared to the procedure forecast. So in addition, I talked about our regulatory paths, and it's very difficult to understand what future changes are going to look like. So what we had to do to understand future regulatory approval dates, and so we use our product registration dates to pull that data into O9 to do those calculations for us. And that serves the proxy, so when a country can take that new version. Since we plan for many parts, we do rely on analytics and visualizations to double check, like I mentioned before, in our data. So for example, in our demand review meetings, I'll bring up a dashboard. It will show both lines. We'll also show historical data along with future sales plan information. And right away, we can automatically tell whether or not our lines are connected or not. And then we drill down to try and understand what's causing the difference. So these are some of the things we use in order to help create better demand visibility. I will say when we were during COVID, our shipment best fit didn't work because we had to stop basically in shipments at our hospitals. So we relied a lot heavily on procedure data. And since data doesn't always tell our story, we still have to work with our international teams, our US teams, our distribution partners to really understand the plan assumptions and the changes. These are some of the things that we're doing around our demand visibility.
Thanks a lot, Joanne. And Arndt, how do you see the, let's say more the academic world looking at that topic? Because I believe we want to get away from looking just in the past and actually try to see really how we are going to look at predicting better. And COVID was probably the best case that we have in mind where past data could not be used anymore. So how do you look at it now? How do you solve for that?
Right. So we are looking here right now, for example, e-commerce companies that are selling seasonal goods for which you don't have any history of selling. And can one come up with reasonable forecasts? And the answer is yes. So what you can do is you're trying to infer from the past and see similar products. But you also look at, for example, Google Trends, and then you can, let's think about Black Swan events. We use Delphi methods where we ask experts what's the likelihood of another lockdown. And you can combine these, and we have forecast errors which are in the order of magnitude of 5 to 7% for products where you don't have any sales history. It sounds magically, but we've tested this over and over again on a very wide range of products. And so it shows you can use machine learning, machine data. So it's human expert data. So you need the experts to give you the trend, and you need the machine or the algorithms to use the Google Trends data and to combine the integrated approach. It's not a hybrid. It's not a mix of 2. It's an integrated approach delivers such results.
Great. Thank you so much, Arndt. And then as a conclusion, right, let's look at the other side of the supply chain and supplier risk management. We are hearing a lot about supply uncertainties, also transport uncertainties with sea freight, but also very much electronics, price of commodities, et cetera, et cetera. Those have definitely disrupted supply chain for the past few years. I'd like to hear from you, Scott, right, about how DS Smith has been looking at this and tackling with those challenges.
At DS Smith, we talk a lot about something called VUCA, which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And these are the only things that are really continuous realities working within supply chain nowadays, especially within a company like DS Smith, where our customers span most sectors, with that being could be automotive, FMCG, e-commerce, every sector in every territory subject to their own macro and micro influences. So to make great decisions for your customers and business requires a closeness to data and signals that that data is providing you in order to make the best decisions for your customer. And really that's what we're focused on here at DS Smith. With access to data, digitalization provides you the agility to react, or maybe even predict or avoid the impacts of that volatility within the supply chain. Digitalization of the supply chain enables us here at DS Smith to be more conscious and quicker and make those choices to optimize revenue, margin, and cash within our business. And in order to really focus on that stuff, it helps us highlight those cross-functional trade-offs through the effective management of information, so the business can act in the fact and the data rather than the assumption. So that's really what we're trying to achieve with our digitalization and supply chain process. In order to enable that, we've invested actually quite heavily in enabling a digital and data capability here at DS Smith to really unleash some of those things that we talked about earlier in the call. So really bringing data to the business to make great decisions, allow us to operate in that VUCA environment, but also notwithstanding the fact that there are organizational and people changes that really allow a company to take great advantage of the things that we've talked about today.
Great, thank you. So Joanne, looking at what actually Intuitive Surgical is also facing in terms of supply of electronics parts probably and other type of products, you also face disruptions from your suppliers. So how do you tackle this and looking at this as also a conclusion to our panel?
I guess to take a look, we all faced lots of shortages in the last year, right? We've learned a lot. I think our goal is to analyze our risk better, right? We want to mitigate it more effectively and increase our resiliency, right? So I think at Intuitive, we look at risk from a people, a process, and a tool perspective, right? And I think really we really look at dual sourcing kind of, and not just for components, but for factories, right? So that's also been a big concern, is to making sure we don't have manufacturing in any one geographic location, right? So we definitely have a team who are our supply chain risk mitigation team, and they work with our supply engineering and design and engineering teams. And they come up with some risk identification, scoring, and tracking methodologies, and developed a risk mitigation plan, right? We also have to track our supplier performance cards and supplier capacity performance and their financial risks. I think one thing that we do at Intuitive is really trying to determine what is the capacity of our suppliers, right? We've been caught off where we try to increase our demand and we realize that we don't have enough supplier capacity. So what we've done to overcome that is we take our 3-year long-term forecast inside of 09, and we actually blow that down into our ERP, into an unproductionalized plan that drives our 3-year long-term forecast at the component level, right? Then I take that component level out, that demand, and I put it into a capacity planning model. And so that triggers whether our supplier gets to 125, 150% of our demand. So we're able to see ahead of time whether or not that we need to invest in our suppliers, or our suppliers need to relook at their tooling or at their manufacturing capacity. So those are some of the things that we're doing to combat our material shortages.
Thanks, Joanne. And Arndt, as a conclusion for this panel, and maybe also your perspective on how to handle risk in supply chain and then digitalization, of course, today.
Yeah, I think we did a survey of C-level executives and asked them, about their strategies. And it turns out there are three types of companies. The first one is the vertically integrated company. Take the semiconductors, for example. What they do, they figure out carefully what is the least risky footprint because they cannot move away. These fabs are very expensive. And they run and schedule their fabs 24/7, and everything is carefully planned. Digitalization is a must and is done literally 24/7. The second one are the automotive companies, tier one suppliers. So they engage in relationships, so partnerships. And again, if they have a strong partnership, they will share some of the value adding activities among the supply chain. Some will be done also by the suppliers. So partnerships are intensified and it's done digitally. And the last one are the typical companies that have a global footprint. And what they are doing, they standardize the product and standardize the processes. So again, they move products quickly. When regions shut down, like COVID in China and complete shutdown, they reschedule and redeploy inventory. So again, digitalization is at the core. But this is not what the consultants or recommend. Consultants always say more inventory, which has nothing to do with digitization. They say regionalization has nothing to do with digitization. And then multi-sourcing also necessarily doesn't have anything to do with digitization. So digitization is at the core, and it's nothing to do with regionalization, inventory, or multi-sourcing.
Yeah, which is a great conclusion. So with data, we can actually replace buffers, time and capacity with information and accelerate the supply chains. So thank you so much for the time and actually your perspectives, Joanne, Scott, and Arndt, and wish our audience a very good continuation into this great event of M10X 2023. Thank you so much and speak to you soon.
Thank you so much.